Hey y'all, I want to talk about this book. Sorry it's backwards. It's my book review. It's called The Remaining by DJ Molles. I think that's how you say his last name. A little bit about me. I am an avid romance reader. That is what I like to read. My son saw me struggling a couple of years ago trying to figure out what to read because, you know, once you get a genre you enjoy, you tend to stay with it. And I was struggling. I read that, don't like that author, blah, blah, blah. He offered to buy me a book. Okay, which one? This is the book. Now, reading the back of it, it sounds like a zombie book. Okay, well, I was determined to hate it. Let's look at the bind. I've read it 8 times, y'all. It's a series. In this series, you meet a gentleman named Lee Hardin. Now, Lee is your atypical career military man. And he's approached by his higher-ups for a contingency plan called Project Homefront. Okay? The first 4 chapters, you're stuck in the hole with Lee. Now, the hole is 1,000 square foot shelter, bomb shelter, for lack of a better term, a bunker. He's in there with his dog for 60 days. By the beginning of chapter 4, I'm chomping at the bit. I am not stuck in the hole, but the way this author has written this book, I feel like I am. Lee has no family. He has no ties. He is very flexible. It talks about flexibility in this. He tends to want what most of our military wants, and that is to protect those who can't protect themselves. Don't have to like the government. Do have to support your military. Sorry, people. That's just how that works. And ultimately, they are shepherds. They are our shepherds. They protect us. Anyway, that's a different tirade. I like the writing style that this author does. This is his first series. I believe there's a new Lee Hardin adventure coming out on Kindle today. There's 6 in this series so far, and the one coming out will make 7 because I consider it part of that. I want to read something just so you know what I mean by writing style. Some people don't. He kept replaying the image of the girl coming out from behind the stairs, the spidery way she scuttled toward him on all 4s, the thin arms, only skin and bones, but shockingly powerful. That, I love adjectives, and he does not overuse them. In this book, you meet Lee, of course, and a young man named Sam. You meet Tango, which is Lee's German Shepherd. You meet, it's been a while, y'all, so you meet a woman and a young girl, okay? Lee is, I want a Lee, but not for the same reasons I want, say, a Styx or an Ash. I want a Lee because he's driven. His job, even after the government falls, because ultimately there's a bacterium with the acronym Fury that destroys 90% of the population, he still does what he was told to do. He still protects those who need protecting. He still has drive. There is a phrase in here in the beginning. I don't know if it's a military phrase, but it makes perfectly good sense to me. The only easy day was yesterday. In this book, there's so much intensity that it literally, I imagine, the way I was going to do this review was I was going to read it, take notes. Lee is in North Carolina. There are 48 people in holes across the country during this pandemic. They all are stuck in this hole for 60 days to start out with. Lee is stationed in North Carolina. And I planned on taking all these notes, but as a reader, I can't. I cannot sit there and take the notes, because even though I've read the story a minimum of 6 times, I still immerse myself in the story. Lee discovers not only does he have to deal with the Fury, he has to deal with assholes that are filling the power vacuum. He has to deal with people who are trying to survive. He has to deal with former military. He's my, for lack of a better term, we've all seen Wolverine, we've all seen Captain America. He's John Wayne. Now, as an avid romance reader, there is no romance in any of these books. And I'm okay with that. It's weird how you can really find a different book. And I owe my son James a great thank you for opening my mind to this, because of this series, I was able to read other series of a similar vein. Aftermath is always going to be my favorite in this series like this. My second favorite, and I highly recommend it, is Affliction Z. I'll talk about that in a different video. In this first book, you get to watch Lee struggle, because he's not been there from the beginning. He's playing catch up. You get to understand his thought processes. Now, from what I understand and read somewhere, DJ, the author, is former military. So there is a lot of acronyms, and a few of them I had to call my brother and ask him what they meant, because I wasn't sure. And you know this character so well without knowing this character that you feel his agitations, you feel his despair. And let me tell you, there is a scene, I believe it's in this book or the next, no, it's in this one, where he is trapped, and you are literally like inside shaking and jittery and like, oh my God, this is it. This is going to be it. This is the end. And he still gets up and fights, and he still keeps going. If you take nothing from this series, it should be do not lay down. It should be don't give up. That is what I take from this series. No, the easy day was yesterday. And I'm actually going to have that framed and put in my room somewhere, because I do get discouraged. I just highly recommend this book, especially with, Halloween being next week. You could, well, I don't know, average person reads, I don't know what, I read 3 to 4 books a week, so I don't know what the average person reads. But if you went out and bought it today, I'm sure you'd have it done by next Wednesday. There are 6 books, like I said, in this series. Aftermath, The Remaining, is the first one. And then you've got, actually it goes, The Remaining, Aftermath, Refugees, Fractured, Alliance, and Extinction. Sorry, I was reading the other books over there. Those are the list of books. And then the new book coming out is Lee Harding, and then something else. I haven't got the notification yet on my Kindle. But even if I do buy it on Kindle, I will buy it in hardback, because it's part of a collection. I have OCD, people. Sorry. But I cannot I cannot explain how much adrenaline dumps in my body when I read these books. I had the first book read within 24 hours. I had the second book read because when we bought them, we bought 1 and 2 because they were out in 2014 together. We bought 1 and 2. And then I actually got a notification in July later that 3 had come out. And I almost got, like, kicked out of Books A Million because the kid behind the counter would not go to the back and get the book. He was too worried about his phone. When you finish one, it literally finishes every last one of these books. Even the last of the last is a cliffhanger. Now, the last of the last is not like a big cliffhanger, but it is a cliffhanger. And I've read a lot. I read a lot of Stephen King. I read a lot, like I said, of Sherilyn Kenyon, Christina Fian. I've read a lot of books. I've never read a series that consistently cliffhung every book. Literally, it feels like next week on. Now, I was really big into The Walking Dead when I started this series. The difference between the apex predators and animals that were people in this series than other zombie books is that the Fury is a bacteria, okay? And it attacks your brain, turns it into Swiss cheese, but it does not kill you. Your heart is still beating, your blood is still circulating, your lungs are still working. So they're not really zombies, they're more crazies. Crazies is a good word for it. Because their strength is more, their strength is intensified, their aggression is intensified, their need to eat is intensified. I, for one, am glad that DJ has put out another Lee Harding adventure, because the problem I have, and you always have a problem with something, the problem I have with this series is there are a lot of branches that he creates a solid foundation for, but never gets explored. And as a would-be writer, when you create branches, I know they're there for a reason, because the story, if you write, story you don't write. The story writes itself through you. So those branches are there for a reason, and I'm curious, like there's a branch where later in the series, I believe it's the book Refugees, where they discovered that the apex predators are breeding, and they're pregnant, and they're having children, and then you don't hear about that again. One of the scientists gives him the book that he's been taking notes in, and you don't hear what's so special, what's so different. I do know that the one upsetting factor in this series for me is that if shit hits the fan, shift, you have to have swift frontier justice. And unfortunately, that is driven home quite frequently in this series. You can't have a trial because there's no government. You can't do the things that we do now because there's no one to enforce it. There's no law. You have to show these people, if you break this rule, this is the consequence. And I think I got more upset with the survivors than the Fury infected. Because, yes, I know people deal with this type of craziness differently. But why would you want to go around killing people? You're basically going extinct. And you're killing people. I mean, I know it would happen. And that's the problem. Is like a lot of this is stuff that you know somewhere inside of you that it will happen if this situation, not zombies, but a structural failure, were to happen, people would get ugly. And we don't even have structural failure, and there's a lot of ugliness in the world. So that's the scariest part for me. It's not the zombie-like creatures that just want to rip you apart and destroy you. It's the inhumanity of the remaining humans that's scary to me. There's a lot of thought-invoking events. Like, obviously, you can't... Like, zombies are not deep thought. But situations that these zombies put these people in are deep thought. I just highly recommend this book and series because I feel like of all the books I've read, this one here is one of the few that really incites and touches me. And it's fiction. Yeah, it's fiction. Non-fiction is the truth. It's fiction, so it's a made-up story, but it incites such a deep reaction in me that it stays with me. Anyway, my recommendation is the series The Remaining, and by DJ Molles. The first book is called The Remaining, and then after that it's The Remaining with a subtitle, about Lee Harden, Tango, and Tango is his dog, and the beginning of Project Homefront. I highly recommend you Kindle it. Go to Books A Million. They now sell used copies, so you can find it relatively cheap. I know I paid $9 for mine, but a friend of mine paid $4 for hers because she got hers used. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Thank you guys for listening to me a lot and rant and rave and just give you a tidbit, because I don't want you to know the whole story, because that ruins it. Movie, book, it doesn't matter. Don't tell the story. Alright, bye.